Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. Today we've got some excellent news for the Ahsoka series. Bryce Dallas-Howard, the incredibly talented director who's brought so much to The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett with her phenomenal directing, recently did an interview with Romper. She spoke about her father's influence and knowing George Lucas personally, and at one point, she kind of teases that she's going to be directing on Ahsoka. She seems to know quite a lot about the project, and having worked on every season of The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, it would be a no-brainer to have her direct at least one episode of the Ahsoka show. Not only that, but she's also revealed a massive hint at what we can expect. Let's dive into it. The article by Romper is titled, Bryce Dallas-Howard loves chocolate and Star Wars, just like you. Well, in my case, that's true. I love both. Even before making this video, I enjoyed a nice Cadbury cream egg. But going back to this article, halfway through, Bryce begins to praise the talents of Dave Filoni, saying, quote, he knows Star Wars better than anyone other than George, and he was taught by George when he was doing all of the Clone Wars, because they did that together, and we worked together on The Mandalorian. And then, following a remark from Henry, the interviewer's son, that he loves the Clone Wars, Bryce Dallas-Howard spilled the beans, and this is what she said. Without giving anything away, you're going to love the Ahsoka show that's coming up. I cannot tell you anything, but what I can say is that you being a fan of the Clone Wars will be greatly rewarded. Now, as you can imagine, this comment caught the attention of a large portion of the fandom, and this quote has been circulating in the online Star Wars space. So what does she mean by this? Well, evidently Ahsoka spent the vast majority of her time in the Star Wars universe, animated in the Clone Wars and Rebels, before making her way to live action in The Mandalorian Season 2 in 2020. From the sounds of things, there will be elements of her past during the Clone Wars era that will come into play in the live-action show, and given that Dave Filoni is showrunning, he wasn't just going to ignore that vast period of time. So what specifically does it mean that the Ahsoka series is going to reward fans of the Clone Wars? Well, immediately for me, a couple of things come to mind, including the appearance of a much older Captain Rex, similar to the age that he was in Star Wars Rebels, but evidently a few years older. Now, given that we know he participated in and survived beyond the Battle of Endor, it seems obvious to me to have Temuera Morrison grow out a beard and play the character in the show. And the second aspect I can think of is Clone Wars flashbacks. Now, we're all talking about those possibly playing into the Kenobi series, but we must not forget that Hayden Christensen is also confirmed for Star Wars Ahsoka. Now, at this point in the timeline, he is a Force ghost and redeemed, but that doesn't mean that they won't show us some adventures from the Clone Wars era, maybe during the time before Ahsoka left the Jedi Order, and who knows, with a bit of luck, Ewan McGregor might feature too. Now, if that's the case, my dear Mandalorians, they would either have to de-age Rosario Dawson or find an actress to portray a younger version of Ahsoka. In either case, it could absolutely work. Of course, other Clone Wars elements could include Bo-Katan, who I assume is going to appear in the show, considering her role in The Mandalorian, and the fact that she knew Ahsoka well during the Clone Wars. Now, the Ahsoka series is not only going to draw upon the Clone Wars, but also major plot elements from Star Wars Rebels. Thrawn and Ezra having been blasted into hyperspace, and Ahsoka and Sabine having to search for them, is the entire premise of the series. So multiple aspects of the Star Wars animated shows that Ahsoka was pivotal in are going to factor into the live-action show, and I'm sure that Dave Filoni has many delicious treats up his sleeves for us fans to be hyped about. If you think back to the Mandalorian behind-the-scenes gallery episodes, Dave often uses the word fun when he talks about the creative process, and because Ahsoka in particular is his baby, I'm sure his vision is precise, and the show can include as much or as little fan service as he pleases. Knowing Dave's style, I lean towards the former, and I'm sure there's going to be plenty of flashbacks, or at least callbacks and references to the Clone Wars. I trust him fully on it. And so now, my dear Mandalorians, just a small piece for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. The show is just over 1 month away, and remember, we're getting 2 episodes on the first day, May the 27th, episodes 1 and 2. And episode 2 is rumored to have a post-credit scene, but today, we've got some really interesting comments from the screenwriter Joby Harold. In a recent interview with Entertainment Weekly, he made very clear that Obi-Wan Kenobi is going to be inherently darker than most Star Wars projects we've seen. I feel like he's come out and said this in response to a lot of fan criticism that the show might not be dark enough, but he's out here saying, believe us, this is a very grim time for the galaxy. In his own words, he said it takes place 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, in a time of darkness in the galaxy. The Empire is in the ascendancy, and all of the horrors that come with the Empire are being made manifest through the galaxy, and the Jedi Order as we know them are being all but wiped out. So everything that was in the prequels has crumbled, and he's setting the scene for this lack of hope, a hopelessness that Kenobi is going to feel for the majority of the show. Now, as we know from the recent Making Star Wars leaks, there is going to be a noticeable turning point for Kenobi, and the series is going to end on a much higher note than the beginning. According to those leaks, the turning points are going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi hearing the voice of Qui-Gon Jinn and seeing the earliest rebels and partisans playing their part in opposing the Galactic Empire, and this is going to make Kenobi realize that his mission to protect Luke is more important than he knows. And so all of this talk of it ending on a high note does not diminish any of the hopelessness. Instead, I see this being the perfect transitioning point from Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan in this show to Alec Guinness's performance and characterization of Obi-Wan 10 years down the timeline in A New Hope. Now, Joby Harold also mentions that Obi-Wan himself has struggled to find faith in the ways of the Jedi, and just as the leaks have been saying, he promises that is going to be explored. In his own words, he says, "Within that hopeless, fatalistic world, we find possibly the most famous of all our surviving Jedi in hiding, struggling with that faith that defines the Jedi and wanting to hold onto it and hoping to regain that faith within that sort of hopeless world." And he goes on to acknowledge that they are bridging the gap between Ewan's Obi-Wan and Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan. In other words, the character developments that Obi-Wan is going to undergo in this show is going to lead to the wizened mentor that we see in episode 4. Joby says it's a master's journey. Within that environment and that galaxy, his faith is tested. And he goes on a journey that allows him to travel from that character that we saw in the last of the prequels, where McGregor felt like he was embodying Obi-Wan Kenobi to a pretty extraordinary degree, and ends with him as the more finished article that Sir Alec Guinness gave to the world in A New Hope. And so in this very specific time in the history of Star Wars, when the Jedi are on the run, we get to sort of stand next to and watch Obi-Wan as he runs the gauntlet and has to survive a pretty extraordinary experience. And I believe in a lot of ways that's really wholesome to see this character come full circle. I believe in 2022, this is the series that caps it all off, brings everything full circle as I said, and leads into the original portrayal of Obi-Wan Kenobi in 1977. There is so much resting on this series' success, and I really hope it's going to blow our minds. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Are you excited for the Kenobi series? And how are you feeling just 1 month away? Let me know your thoughts of this and everything else we spoke about in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, my dear friends, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, hit the notification bell to be alerted every time that I post a new video. But until the next one, have an amazing day no matter where you are in the galaxy. I'm Star Wars Meg, may the Force be with you, always.